Okay, so another type of conversion that gets a little bit more complicated is when you have like ratio units, for example, miles per hour. Okay, and if you have a ratio unit like this, essentially instead of writing it like miles slash hour, you should write it miles, however it is, however many miles per 1 hour. Put hour on the bottom. Now, remember before, the only time I said you're going to write something on the bottom is if you have a unit like this. It should always still be a 1 on the bottom, but you want to split your unit up in order to convert it. Okay, so if we're converting something like this, you have to make sure that your numerator and your denominator work out the way you want to. So I'm going to convert 34 miles per hour into meters per second. Okay, so I'm still going to follow my steps. Always start with the number I gave you in the problem. So 34 miles per 1 hour. Okay, remember I said write it this way so that you can get your units to work out. So I'm just going to go 1 unit at a time. I'm going to turn my miles into meters. Okay, so I'm going to multiply by some type of conversion factor. I don't know the conversion for meters to miles. Actually, no, I did. I looked it up. So you could look it up if you wanted to, or you could go to feet and then centimeters or whatever you want to, depending on what you know. I will give you the needed conversions, remember. But I looked it up, and 1 mile is the same as 1609.34 meters. Okay, so look at that. My miles have gone away. Now, if I stopped here, I would get meters per hour. But that's not what the question is asking. It's asking for seconds. So I need to do another conversion factor to get rid of my hours. Now, hours is on the denominator over here. So if I wanted to cancel out, I actually had to put hours on my numerator over here. And I know that there are 3,600 seconds in 1 hour. Okay, so now my hours will cancel out and I'm left with meters per second. Okay, you can do this in any order. It doesn't matter because it's all multiplication and division. So now I'm going to do 34 times 1609.34 divided by 3,600. And I get that this is 15 meters per second. All right. Okay. You might want to try a couple more of those. There will be definitely some in the homework. If you need help using Chem 101 and how to drag and drop those dimensional analysis things, please let me know. Come see me during my Zoom. All right, let's see. Example number 10. A chemist wants to measure out 0.214 milliliters of benzene, but lacks the equipment to accurately measure such a small volume. The chemist, however, is equipped with an analytical balance capable of measuring 2.001 grams. Looking in a reference table, the chemist learns the density of benzene is this. How many grams of benzene should the chemist use? Okay, well, this is kind of a density problem, and we'll talk about density here in a little bit. But essentially, I got a lot of numbers here, so you got to decide which one to start with. This is just describing the balance. So this plus or minus 0.0001 grams, you can ignore that, okay? What I have is this ratio here, okay, which is its density, and this volume here. Okay, so my tip for you is always start with a volume or a mass if you can. I don't want to convert this density unless I'm actually trying to convert the density. So if you have the option, try not to start with the ratio, try to start with a different unit. So actually, I'm going to start this one, 0.214 milliliters. Oops. Okay, over 1. All right, I want my milliliters to go away. Now I'm not trying to go from like milliliters to liters or anything. I actually want to know how much stuff to weigh. So I can use this density with this ratio as a conversion factor, because what that density is actually saying is it's 0.8765 grams per every 1 milliliter. So my milliliters will cancel out. This will give me the grams that I should mass, and I get 0.188 grams of benzene. Okay, so that's like one type of problem that you can solve using dimensional analysis. Now, sometimes you might run into units raised to a power, like square inches to square centimeters, or cubics, and you need to be really careful with those, because I know, yes, that 1 inch is 2.54 centimeters, but 1 cubic or square inch is not 2.54 square centimeters. They're not the same thing. And if you actually want to turn this into a conversion, you have to square 1 squared, inches squared, equals 2.54 squared centimeters squared. So you also have to square the number, okay? So keep that in mind when you're trying to do a conversion like this. So I'm going right here. The conversion numbers must also be raised to a power. All right, so if it's cubic, you need to cube the number. All right, so I'm going to do this example right here. I'm going to convert 0.196 square miles into square yards, okay, based on what I know. So I'm going to start with my number. Square miles would be square miles over 1. Okay, now I want to go to square yards. Now, I don't actually know how many yards are in a mile. I do know how many feet are in a mile and then how many feet are in a yard. So I'm actually going to go to feet first. So I want miles squared to turn into feet squared. Now I know that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile, but in a squared one, there are 5,280 square feet in a square mile. Okay, now I can do the same thing with feet to yards. Square feet to square yards. Yards squared. I know that there are 3 feet in a yard, so there are 3 squared feet in a square yard, and now I can do my math, right? All my units cancel out. Square miles, square feet, and I'm left with square yards. Now, 1 squared is just 1, so you can ignore those. So I'm just going to do 0.196 times 5,280 squared divided by 9, which is 3 squared, right? And I would get, and I'm going to round, 607,000 square yards. So give that a try on your calculator. I rounded to 366. That's how many was in the problem I gave you.